Is he literally parking? We can't do roll calls. We can't do public hearings. Welcome everyone to the City of Binghamton City Council Business Meeting for Wednesday, March 9, 2022. Please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, everyone, as a courtesy, we're going to wait literally 2 minutes. Our colleague Joe Burns is coming up, but our clerk had to let him in. So we're going to give him a minute to get up here so he can do a roll call for us and we'll get rolling. Thank you.
Mr. President, I hope you scold Mr. Burns on being on time.
Yes, I'm not sure. Yes, I'm not sure where his badge is to get in himself, but we'll give him 1 minute and then we'll get rolling here. Okay, as we've done before, so you can see anybody that's viewing online from your right to left, we have Councilwoman Sophia Resnick, 2nd District, our Clerk Lee Rogers, Phil Strawn, 6th District Council, and Joe Burns, 5th District, from right to left as you see it. Mr. Clerk, will you roll call for us?
Yes. Councilman Scaringi?
Aye.
Councilwoman Resnetti?
Sorry.
Present.
Councilwoman Riley?
Present.
Councilwoman Friedman?
Present.
Councilman Burns?
Present.
Councilman Scanlon?
Present.
And President Strawn.
Present.
That's all 7 here.
Okay, first item on our agenda tonight is a public hearing. Mr. Clerk, will you read the public hearing and tell folks how they can participate? I'm sorry. We have the approval of minutes from the February 23, 2022 business meeting.
Thank you, Mr. President. I'd like to make a motion to approve the minutes from the February 23rd, 2022 business meeting.
Second, Mr. President.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay, thank you. I apologize for that. We will now move on to our public hearing. Mr. Clerk, will you tell everyone how they can about the public hearing and how they can participate?
Yes, we have one public hearing this evening. And it's the City of Binghamton will hold a public hearing now regarding RL 22-57 entitled Ordinance to modify the 2019 bond for pedestrian safety improvements. Anyone wishing to speak at this time on this public hearing, please click the raised hand button and leave it raised, and we will allow you to speak one by one. Thank you. Again, for our listeners out there, if you would like to speak during the public hearing, please click the raised hand button and leave it raised, and we will allow you to speak one by one.
Mr. Clerk, did we have anybody that sent anything in on the public hearing electronically?
We did not receive any communications. Okay, we have one person for the public hearing regarding the bond who would like to speak. Stephen Menz, we will allow them to speak now. Mr. Menz, if you're out there, I believe we gave you the permission to speak through Zoom. If you're ready to speak on the public hearing bond. Okay, can you hear us now? On our end, it says you're unmuted. Okay, it looks like he put his hand down. If there's anyone else that would like to speak, please click the raise hand button and leave it raised. And this is regarding the public hearing tonight for the bond. It's to modify the 2019 bond for pedestrian safety improvements.
Okay, I would entertain a motion to close the public hearing.
So
Motion
moved.
to second.
All in favor? Aye.
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 Okay, thank you. Next on our agenda, we need to set a public hearing for our next business meeting. Mr. Clerk, will you read that into the record?
Yes. So the city of Binghamton will hold a public hearing regarding RL 22-72 entitled "A Local Law Amending the Code to Reduce Permissible Grass and Weed Height from 10 inches to 8 inches." This public hearing will take place during the next regular city council business meeting at 6 p.m. on Wednesday, March 23rd, 2022, virtually via Zoom. Residents wishing to submit comments may do so electronically by their comments prior to 1 p.m. on the day of the meeting to clerk@cityofbinghamton.com or virtually via Zoom during the meeting. For any questions, please contact the Binghamton City Clerk's office.
Okay, thank you. We will now move on to our public comment portion of our meeting. Mr. Clerk, will you tell people how they can participate in the public comment?
Yes, for public comment tonight, please click the raised hand button and leave it raised, and we will allow you to speak one by one. And please state your full name and if you live or work in the city of Binghamton. Thank you. Again, if you would like to participate in public comment, please click the raised hand button. Okay, we have one speaker, Tina Chronopoulos. Please state your full name and if you live or work in the city of Binghamton.
Hello, good evening. Can you hear me? Super, thank you.
Yes.
Starting my timer. My name is Tina Chronopoulos. I live on Laurel Avenue in Binghamton in Council Member Sophia Resniti's district. I wanted to say thank you for uploading the materials for today with the 24-hour time. I was able to look into that a little bit yesterday before my day really kicked off hard with some interesting stuff at work. So I appreciate that extra time. A couple of things that I wanted to talk about tonight. This is not necessarily city council matter, but I was looking at the agenda for Monday, and I noticed that one of the folks who presented to you then is Megan Hyman. And I thought, oh gosh, I think I know that name. So I looked up who that is. And of course, Megan Brockett Hyman is the assistant, I think the executive assistant to the mayor. But when I looked this person up on LinkedIn, they have actually listed themselves as deputy mayor. And I think this was already done by the current mayor, Jared Graham, when he was the executive assistant to Mayor Rich David. And I really wish that you could maybe sort that out and stop people from misrepresenting themselves. Because if I'm not wrong, if there is something that happens to the mayor, then the person who sort of takes over while they are maybe sick in the hospital or otherwise incapacitated is not quote unquote the executive assistant who calls themselves deputy mayor, but the president of the city council. So I feel bad that I'm singling out another woman for this, but it really bothers me that this is something that folks can just do and call themselves a deputy mayor when that's not what they are doing. So please look into this. Thank you. Another thing that I wanted to talk about, I saw on your minutes that there is something called Ordinance 22-43. It looks like what this is going to do is to amend the 2022 budget to allocate ARPA funds for demolition of vacant and abandoned properties. And of course, I am not an elected government official. I don't really know what I'm talking about. But when you look up on the internet what cities can do with ARPA funds, it does specifically say cities can use ARPA funds to support public health expenditures, address the negative economic impacts caused by the public health emergency, replace lost public sector revenue, provide premium pay for essential workers, and invest in water, sewer, and broadband infrastructure. And I'm not really sure. And again, I know that some of you do enjoy telling me that I don't know what I'm talking about, but I'm not really sure how the demolition of a building or buildings has anything to do with what I just read out. And I also read on the internet that the youth center is no longer going to be funded, which is really actually sad, but I am wondering, since some of the money for that rec center was going to be ARPA money, what are you going to be doing with that ARPA money? Are you going to be funneling it back into that sort of general fund, which would then allow you to do with that money as you will, and therefore possibly bypassing the sort of the parameters for which that money was given to cities such as Binghamton in the first place? So I'm just sort of curious how you're going to go about that. And I think, gosh, that's it. I hope that everyone is staying nice and toasty.
You have 1 minute left.
Thank you. As always, oh yes, I guess the one thing that I was wondering is, will there ever be a possibility for folks to come back and attend meetings in person? I would like to suggest that you keep the remote option for those of us who have busy lives, children, elderly folks that we have to take care of. But I'm also curious to know when will we be able to come and address you in person? Because I'm sure, as you know, there is nothing quite like the sort of interpersonal touch that makes these meetings what they are. Thanks for your time. Take care.
Thank you. If anyone else would like to speak during public comment, please click the raised hand button. Hi, at this time, we will allow this person to speak, but
Okay,
they didn't list a name.
it's Tom Costello, Laurel Avenue, Binghamton, former city official. Can you hear me?
Yes, you have 5 minutes.
Okay, no, I just wanted to second the comment made by the previous commentator in regard to the deputy mayor. My question or comment is, I'm not aware of a change to the city charter that would empower the mayor's executive assistant or whatever she's called. So I had two basic questions that I did not see publicly advertised. One is, was a new position created with that title? And if so, was there any amendment to the city charter that empowered that position such that people would understand the difference between an assistant to the mayor and someone who is superseding the former powers invested in the council president? So I also share that concern, and I really think it would be good to let the public know about that. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else wishing to speak during public comment, please click the raised hand button.
Mr. Clerk, did we receive anything electronically for public comment?
No, we didn't receive any letters or emails.
Okay, thank you. Okay, we'll give it a few more seconds and then we will move on in our agenda. Okay, thank you for our two speakers tonight. We appreciate your input into our meeting, and we will now end public comment, and we move on to our preferred agenda. Would anyone like anything removed from the preferred agenda before we proceed? Councilwoman Freeman, go ahead.
Thank you, Council President. I would like to remove Introductory Ordinance 22-43 from the preferred agenda, please.
Okay, anything else? Anyone else? Anything else? Any other items to be removed from the preferred agenda? Okay, we will proceed with the preferred agenda as modified. Mr. Clerk, will you please walk us through the preferred agenda, starting with Introductory Ordinance 2237?
Yes. Okay, so the first item on tonight's preferred agenda is Introductory Ordinance 22-37, considered in finance. And this is an ordinance to amend the 2022 Bureau of Police budget to increase the annual salary of the senior crime analyst to $72,000.
Any questions or comments on Introductory Ordinance 22-37? Okay, please proceed.
Next, we have Introductory Ordinance 22-38, considered in finance. And this is an ordinance to amend the 2022.
Hey, any questions or comments on Introductory Ordinance 22-38?
We lost the ability to hear the clerk during that delivery.
Sorry, can you hear me now?
Yes, thank you.
Can you reread the number and the title, please?
Yes, for just this last one, Introductory 2238. Okay.
Yes, please. Thank you.
Sorry about that. Thank you. Okay, so the second item on our preferred agenda is Introductory Ordinance 22-38, considered in finance. And this is an ordinance to amend the 2022 Binghamton-Johnson City joint sewage budget to transfer funds for an additional Operator 1 trainee position and defund an Operator 3 position.
Any questions or comments on Introductory Ordinance 2238? Okay, please proceed.
Next, we have introductory ordinance 22-39 considered in finance. And this is an ordinance to amend the FY47 CDBG budget to purchase and equip a fire rescue truck for the Binghamton Fire Department.
Any questions or comments on introductory ordinance 22-39? Councilwoman Freeman, go ahead.
Thank you, Council President. I wanted to reiterate something that I said during a work session, in that these are special circumstances under which we are being asked to approve this money. And normally I would say when the chief of the fire department has time to, is brought onto the team with sufficient time to carefully craft a capital projects line in their budget. And when we don't have $800,000 of CDBG money lying around, I feel like we definitely need to, I think, approach this more intentionally, shall I say. So I do just want to say that these, like, normally this is not something that I would feel comfortable using CDBG money for, but also at the same time, of course I would never want to have the fire department to be ill-equipped to respond to an emergency. So these are not normal circumstances under which we're being asked to approve this money. I just wanted to reiterate that. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilwoman Riley, you had your hand up. Go ahead.
Thank you, Council President. Similar to my colleague, Councilman Friedman, I did want to reiterate the fact that we are using CDBG funds, which were allocated by several, it was allocated, the request was initiated by the previous administration, highlighting the need to support youth programming in our city in response to a public outcry regarding racism. Now, we are now rescinding that money and we are using it for the fire department. Now, I did ask during that same work session, as mentioned before, how are we now going to prioritize the needs of the community that makes us eligible for CDBG funding? That has not yet been discussed. I am, however, thankful that Mayor Cram did open his office and the opportunity for programs and organizations to come forth with ideas and suggestions. So that will be the focus of discussions, and I hope my fellow council members will join in with me. Now, I am in support of assisting our fire department. I've spoken to several firemen. Many of us were there speaking to the firemen last Friday, and they support and ask that we support this expenditure. So of course, yes, in the future, when we have a seated fire chief that is the full fire chief and able to create a budget, we can intentionally plan for purchasing additional engines, whatever they need, so that we can appropriately budget. I, again, am opposed to using CDBG funding, which is for targeted areas in our community for this purpose. But because of the, again, special circumstance, I will support it as long as we recognize that there was a highly publicized presentation about how that money was allocated and why it was allocated. Let us not forget, and we must remember our children. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions or comments on introductory ordinance 2239? Okay, please proceed.
Okay, our next item on the preferred agenda is introductory ordinance 22-41, considered in finance. And this is an ordinance to amend the 2022 central services budget for the position of stores keeper.
Any questions or comments on introductory ordinance 22-41? Okay, please proceed.
Next, we have introductory ordinance 22-42, considered in finance. And this is an ordinance to amend the 2022 budget to unallocate ARPA funds from the permanent ordinance 2195.
Okay, any questions or comments on introductory ordinance 2242? Councilwoman Friedman.
Thank you, Council President. I'm going to now piggyback off what my colleague, Councilwoman Riley, was just talking about, where this money is now being unallocated due to the fact that the recreation center is no longer being pursued, and it's cited, the reason why people are saying the reason why is because the estimates came in higher than we initially thought that they were. But there were about half of council was wary of the initial price estimates, saying that this money ought not to have been allocated toward the rec center in the first place, and we voted no on it. And that's not to say, let me be clear, that's not to say that we don't value the Parks Department, think that they should have a place for their equipment to go and to be able to provide year-round indoor programming. It's not that at all, but it's that we have to be fiscally responsible. And, there were many concerns. Would this building be self-sufficient? Would it be revenue generating? The answers were no, and that's going off the initial cost estimate. So I view this as kind of a second chance, right? We have a second chance. We are able to get it right this time. And like Councilwoman Riley said, the ARPA money was awarded to Binghamton for a very specific reason, because COVID has and is continuing to devastate our communities and communities across the nation. And we need to really deeply canvass our neighborhoods and deeply engage with our constituents to make sure that this ARPA money, this $3 million that is now becoming unallocated, is being spent in the highest need and to do the greatest good. So I'm kind of counting my lucky stars in a way that we have the opportunity to do it over and do it right. And so I look forward to those proactive conversations about where this money can do the most good and where it should go. Conversations that come directly from the populations that are most impacted by this. Thank you.
Okay. Councilman Burns, go ahead.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. President. I agree with Councilman Friedman in that we shouldn't have gone into this whole thing with when St. Mary's was available, et cetera. And I'm very happy that the mayor is now looking into the St. Mary's alternative, and that this money that's being turned back into ARPA, that being unallocated, we really should have a good bipartisan discussion with all of us and the mayor and our constituents about the best possible way to spend this money. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions or comments on introductory ordinance 2242? Okay, 2243 has been removed, so please proceed, Mr. Clerk.
Yes, our next item on the third agenda is introductory resolution 22-18, considered in finance. And this is a resolution authorizing the mayor to enter into an agreement with Albert Tordo Construction Corporation for change order number 2 regarding emergency sewer repairs at 503 Shenango Street and 19 Richmond Ave.
Any questions or comments on introductory resolution 2218? Okay, please proceed.
Next, we have introductory resolution 22-21 considered in finance. And this is a resolution authorizing the mayor to enter into supplemental agreement number 1 with the New York State DOT for pedestrian safety improvements project PIN 9754.63 for preliminary engineering, design, and construction support, and construction inspection work.
Okay, any questions or comments on introductory resolution 22-21? Okay, please proceed.
Next, we have introductory resolution 22-22 considered in finance. And this is a resolution authorizing the Rumble Ponies to conduct fireworks displays in 2022.
Any questions or comments on introductory resolution 22-22? Okay, please proceed.
Next, we have introductory resolution 22-23 considered in the Public Works and Parks Committee. And this is a resolution confirming that city parks, playgrounds, and recreational facilities are tobacco and smoke-free zones, including e-cigarettes and marijuana.
Any questions or comments on introductory resolution 22-23? Councilwoman Friedman, go ahead.
Thank you, Council President. I know that this is sort of updating language that was already implicitly true, meaning even with the legalization of marijuana and e-cigarettes, that parks were always smoke-free zones. And so we're not making anything illegal that wasn't already. I want to, I guess, caution us to just be aware of sometimes language being unintentionally, I suppose, used to or is enforced in unequal or biased ways. Things like sometimes, for example, a dress code at a bar or something, you know, language that on the surface isn't, you know, there's nothing wrong with it. But, you know, we have to ask who is being targeted by this. And so while I support this and I'm going to vote in favor of it, you know, this is language to solidify something that was always true. And I want to make sure that we are enforcing it in a non-biased way, as you know, residents of color are often targeted. I'm not saying that we as a city are doing this intentionally, but residents of color, again, across the nation, are often targeted by language like this. So this is, again, just to put into writing something that has been true since the get-go. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilwoman Riley, go ahead.
Thank you, Council President. You might have to call on me first a few times because we say the same things. So just echoing again, Councilmember Friedman, as I spoke and shared, as I shared in our work session, again, if it in this non-binding resolution, it already explicitly says that the parks and recreational facilities are smoke-free. When you highlight certain types of delivery systems and certain products, it then points out or highlights a subset of the population that may use said products. And we want to be mindful that we are not necessarily doing so. Now, I understand, again, it's not done to penalize, or is it done to ridicule the population? And it was actually an initiative from our Broome tobacco-free committee, which is great. But we have to be careful, again, as a body of legislators when we advocate for certain language, because we don't want anyone to feel targeted, as my fellow council member said. So since we are not changing the signage, since this is just a non-binding resolution to support the Broome County Smoke-Free Committee, I too will stand in support. However, I want us to recognize language and be mindful, because as we did several months ago, we walked around another non-binding resolution about words, and it became a problem. So similar to this, I just want us to just always keep that at the forefront when we're voting and amending or creating resolutions, non-binding resolutions. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions or comments on introductory ordinance 22-23? Okay, please proceed.
Okay. The next item on the preferred agenda is introductory resolution 22-24, considered in planning. And this is a resolution to extend the end date in the agreement with the First Ward Action Council to use FY46 CDBG funds to June 30th, 2022.
Any questions or comments on introductory resolution 22-24? Okay, please proceed.
And the last item on tonight's preferred agenda is introductory resolution 22-25, considered in the MPA committee. And this is a resolution to approve the bylaws of the City of Binghamton Water Street Local Development Corporation.
Okay, any questions or comments on introductory resolution 22-25?
Mr. President, motion to accept the preferred agenda as amended.
Second.
Could you do a roll call for us, Mr. Clerk, on the preferred agenda as amended?
Okay, Councilman Scaringi,
Aye.
Councilwoman Rosnetti,
Aye.
Councilwoman Riley,
Aye.
Councilwoman Friedman,
Aye.
Councilman Burns,
Aye.
Councilman Scanlon,
Aye.
and President Strawn.
Aye.
That's 7 ayes, 0 nays.
Okay, we will now proceed to our non-preferred agenda, and we will start with introductory ordinance 22-43, which was removed a few minutes ago from the preferred agenda. Introductory ordinance 2243 is considered in finance. Councilman Scaringi.
Thank you, Mr. President. I stand and ask for unanimous consideration for introductory ordinance 22-43, an ordinance to amend the 2022 budget to allocate American Rescue Plan Act funds for demolition of vacant and abandoned properties.
Do we have a second?
Second.
Councilwoman Resnick, second. Any questions or comments on introductory ordinance 22-43? Councilwoman Freeman, go ahead.
Thank you, Council President. I can't see if Councilwoman Riley was raising her hand, but if so, I can go second. I yield the floor. Again,
I could let her go first. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, I can't believe she was
I didn't
raising
see
her hand.
you
but-
beat her. You beat her to the punch.
Okay. So the reason why I removed this from the preferred agenda was not because I'm against it, but I was swayed by the caller who expressed hesitation about using ARPA money for this. And in the initial packet of materials that was sent out, this was not marked as expedited. And so therefore I haven't done what I would consider to be sufficient outreach, or I haven't really heard from my constituents about this. And so it's not that I don't want to support this because obviously abandoned vacant properties are dangerous, they're eyesores, and I believe that we should knock them down once they become unsafe. But I don't know if I feel totally confident in using this money, and I don't know if my constituents also feel like this is the best use of money. So I just, I think that I would like to make a motion to hold this over to allow myself more time to do a little bit more research as this was expedited. So I'm hoping to make a motion to hold it over so we can vote on it in another couple of weeks.
Anyone else like to?
I'll second. And maybe we should discuss possibly using, you know, the money that came from St. Mary's from Columbus. There was 3 million ARPA and there was 3 million that went back to the fund balance that was originally ARPA fund, I might add, that possibly we use that money because ARPA can only be used for certain things, and maybe we could find something else to use the ARPA funds for, and then use some of this stuff that went, some of the money that went back to the fund balance. Thanks.
Okay, that item is held over. We will now proceed to Introductory Ordinance 22-40, considered in finance. And there's also seeker motions attached to this introductory ordinance. Councilwoman Scringy, go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. President. Binghamton City Council needs to make a State Environment Quality Review Act motion based on this. So for Introductory Ordinance 22-40, entitled An Ordinance Amending the Bond Ordinance adopted February 6th, 2019, and previously amended on May 19th, 2021, on account of the pedestrian improvements, I make a motion to declare a type 2 action under the State Environmental Quality Review Act, or seeker, for the following reasons. The nature of the action is an ordinance to modify the February 6th, 2019 bond as previously modified on May 19th, 2021, to increase the appropriation for pedestrian improvements from $489,300 to $850,000, and to further amend said bond ordinance to authorize the issuance of an additional $360,700 bonds to finance said increased appropriation. Based on the findings, the City of Binghamton City Council has determined that the proposed action described above is a type 2 action based on subsection 617.5 type 2C 4, repaving of existing highways not involving the addition of new travel lines, 5 street openings and right-of-way openings for the purposes of repair or maintenance of existing utility facilities, and 21 minor temporary uses of land having negligible or no permanent impact on the environment, and no further environmental review is necessary.
Second.
Okay, any discussion or comments about the seeker motion? Okay, could you do a full roll call vote for us, Mr. Clerk?
Councilman Scaringi,
Aye.
Councilwoman Rosnetti, Councilwoman Riley,
Aye.
Councilwoman Friedman,
Aye.
Councilman Burns,
Aye.
Councilman Scanlon,
Aye.
and President Strong.
Aye.
That's 7 ayes, 0 nays.
Okay, Councilman Scringy, go ahead with Introductory Ordinance 22-40.
Thank you, Mr. President. I rise and ask for unanimous consent for Introductory Ordinance 22-40, entitled An Ordinance Amending the Bond Ordinance adopted February 6th, 2019, and previously amended on May 19th, 2021, on account of the pedestrian improvements.
Second.
Questions or comments on Introductory Ordinance 22-40?
Seeing no discussion, I'll call the question, Mr. President.
Thank you. Mr. Clerk, you do a roll call for us on.
Yes. Okay, Councilman Scaringi,
Aye.
Councilwoman Rosnetti,
Aye.
Councilwoman Riley,
Aye.
Councilwoman Friedman,
Aye.
Councilman Byrne,
Aye.
Councilman Scanlon,
Aye.
and President Strawn.
Aye.
That's 7 ayes, 0 nays.
Okay. Thank you, everyone, for walking through the legislation tonight. We will now proceed to our communications from our council colleagues and members. We will start with District 5 and Councilman Burns.
Thank you, Mr. President. The parade day, it was absolutely fabulous for our community. I've been to a lot of them. I can't remember one any larger. I've seen pictures of the time that George W. Bush came to march, and those photos in some sections looked bigger, but I'll tell you what, this Saturday it was huge. And from St. Mary's all the way to the end. And it wasn't, like a lot of years, it's the students that are overwhelming. It was not. This was Binghamton families, Binghamton residents coming out of the woodwork after COVID and just celebrating our community. And it was absolutely wonderful and beautiful, and it warmed my heart. So thank you very much for everybody that came out.
Thank you. We will go to District 7, Councilman Scanlon.
Thank you, Mr. President. I just like to reiterate what Councilman Burns is saying. This was the shout out to the AOH for putting on a fantastic parade. This was the 56th year of the parade. So obviously a big tradition in Binghamton. And like Councilman Burns said, the crowds were just great to see, and it was a great day for Binghamton. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you, Councilman Scanlon. We will now proceed to District 1, the First Ward, Councilman Scaringi.
Thank you, Mr. President. I just want to echo the same sentiment. Well done to the AOH and the committee, the Parade Day and St. Patrick's Day Parade Committee, who always do a great job every year that it's been put on. I drilled this past weekend, wasn't able to make it, but I heard that it was just an amazing weekend. I heard great turnout, and the weather was really good. Sorry that I missed it. Hopefully that won't happen in the future. But so glad to hear that just people were coming out and really just getting back into a flow of life pre-COVID. That's really nice when we start to see things like that. It kind of just brings a little soft air back to life, and it's good to see. I do want to give my regards, prayers, and condolences to the Sylvester family. The West Side and Binghamton lost a very, very long time resident earlier this week. Margaret Sylvester, she was 98 years old, longtime resident, big on gardening and just keeping her property up. And, it was always nice every day, taking a run and being by her house and seeing her outside. She was so full of energy. She was so passionate. Everybody in the neighborhood knew her. Every year at our, in our neighborhood block party that we always throw. She's going to be missed. So our condolences and our prayers to the family and all the neighbors and friends that knew her so well. She will definitely be missed. And lastly, obviously, this is Binghamton. We know the weather here changes on the dime, right? Sunday, it evidently, even though I missed it, it got up to 70 degrees or something like that. And here we are. We got a few inches of snow today, and I guess more coming on Saturday. So just be safe, stay warm, watch out for your neighbors, especially for the elderly, your pets. And a big shout out to our DPW guys and gals for all the hard work. When so many things closed earlier today, that's when they kind of step up into gear, as well as the Parks Department. They do a lot downtown on the roads and the sidewalks and parks as well. So Kudos to all of them, and stay warm and stay safe. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you, Councilman Scringy. We will now proceed to District 2 and Councilwoman Resiniti.
Thank you, Mr. President. Just a couple of things. First, I like to give a big shout out to DPW. As Councilman Scringy just said, you know, it's Binghamton weather, so we're back to snow. Thank you for
Councilwoman Ressinetti.
Yes.
Excuse me.
Yes.
We cannot hear you.
Okay. Can you hear me now?
Better.
Better?
Thank you.
Okay. So I would like to say a big thank you to DPW for their hard work. And as Councilman Scaringi was saying earlier, you know, this is Binghamton weather. One day it's 70 degrees, one day there's snow. So thank you for everything you do to keep our streets clean. Please continue to follow the rules when it comes to parking and all of that good stuff so we can make their work a little bit easier. I also wanted to say, wow, what a great parade we had. The weather was beautiful. The crowd was amazing. I agree. It was probably one of the best. And it was great to see families coming together and celebrating, and the students. And overall, I think everybody was well behaved. So it was great to see. And thank you to those in the background who were making sure that we were safe. And one more thing, I also wanted to say, once again, wow, what an amazing community we have. This past Sunday, we came together here outside City Hall to show our support to the Ukrainian community and the loved ones in the Ukraine with everything that's happening. And I don't know how many of you were able to pay attention to that event, but the crowd was a large one. It was really touching to see us all come together and support our Ukrainian families. I personally have, Ukrainian family, and I can tell you over the years, they are kindest, just most lovely, hardworking, mostly immigrants that we have here in our community and have supported our community for so long. So I wanted to say thank you. It was really an honor for them to ask me to be there to speak along with a handful other local elected officials. So continue to pray for those folks and to donate, to do whatever it is that we can do to help them as they're going through this difficult time. And with that, I will say thank you and good night.
Thank you, Councilwoman. We will now proceed to District 3 and Councilwoman Riley.
Good evening, everyone. So I will start by echoing the sentiments of all the council members that spoke so highly of the parade this weekend. It was a great opportunity to build bridges and just celebrate safely. And so I was glad to walk amongst my fellow elected officials and greet neighbors and friends with pencils and not necessarily candy. And that was the big joke of the day, but I think it was well received. I do want to, because of such festivities, I would like to remind everyone that the U.S. Postal Service is opening their doors for you to order an additional set of COVID tests so you can make sure that you are not transmitting COVID, and you can test as frequently as you like so we can decrease the transmission of said virus. So I want to highlight that that is open again so you can order your second set, particularly after all of the festivities this weekend. Yes, the Ukraine event was great. And I'd like to also highlight that we all received letters because Binghamton has become a haven, a city selected for those seeking refuge, not only from the Ukraine, but from Afghanistan as well. So I celebrate what we're doing in the city that draws people in and draws the community together to support those seeking safety here on our blocks and amongst us. So let us continue, like my other council members said, let us continue to support them. There are various links available to donate towards their safety, their housing, what have you. Again, so we can continue to support our neighbors and build that connection within our community. As mentioned before, I mentioned last meeting that our weather has been like the lottery, or the lotto. And here we are again. And similar to what was already stated, remind your youth that are driving, they too have to adhere to the parking, the side parking ordinances. We cannot help them, even if they live in our house. So it's important that we make sure that we park according to the date so that our roads can be cleaned and everyone can drive safely to their respective destinations. Again, I thank you. I forgot to mention tomorrow, I have shared on my various social media platforms as well as on my mailing lists that the traffic signal at North and Murray has been up for consideration for removal. If you are listening to this message right now and you live in the 3rd or are impacted by the signal at North and Murray, which we know is a very, very busy set of cross streets, please write me. I am drafting statements collected from my constituents in anticipation of a meeting tomorrow at 9:15. If you are able to participate, it will be held via Zoom, and you can also call in. Thank you so much. Have a good evening.
Thank you, Councilwoman. We will now proceed to District 4 and Councilwoman Friedman.
Thank you, Council President. I also missed Parade Day this weekend. I was so bummed because even when I was a BU student, I never got to go. I was in the pep band and we would follow the basketball team to the tournament. And every year it was on Parade Day. So the only time I've really celebrated Parade Day was my very first one after getting elected in 2020. That was like a week before the COVID lockdown started. So I think back fondly to that 2 years ago, and I can't wait until next year. I'm blocking it out on my calendar. I don't even care. I'm saying no to everything because I will be there, I promise. But I have heard that it was wonderful. I'm so sad to have had to miss that. Happy belated International Women's Day, which was yesterday. I had the pleasure, along with other women elected officials and community representatives, to raise the flag for Women's History Month, along with Mayor Cram. And something that I said during the flag raising was that we celebrate women and we commemorate the achievements that women have accomplished looking back, but also looking forward. Are we making sure that when we say women, we're talking about all women? Are we caring for women with disabilities and LGBTQ women and Indigenous women and women of color? If we are truly supporting and celebrating those communities as well, I say this all the time, a rising tide lifts all boats. So when we say women, we can't just be talking about a certain narrow subset of women, but we need to make sure that women that occupy other identities or who are in other communities are also celebrated and supported during Women's History Month and also every day of the year. There's a community announcement that I would like to make. Tomorrow evening, there's going to be an informational meeting hosted by Dave and Jean Lindsay. You might recognize their names from Sherry Lindsay Park, named after their daughter, Sherry Lindsay. Also super active and involved community members. So there's going to be an informational meeting about sex offenders, their rights, as well as other residents' rights. So that's going to happen tomorrow at 7 p.m. at Centenary Shenango Street Church, which is at 438 Shenango Street, right near the pass that's under construction. And there's going to be other elected officials there as well. So I plan to attend, and there will be other elected officials there as well. So that is my one community announcement. Normally, I realize the North Side Assembly meetings generally fall the day after a business meeting, but occasionally the way that the dates fall, it happens the week before. So normally I can make announcements about the North Side Assembly meeting. That's where I found out about this informational meeting. So that's all I have for tonight. Everyone, please drive safely because the roads are slippery out there. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilwoman Friedman. Just a couple things real quick. Just want to echo the sentiments. The parade was fantastic. The weather was nice, and it was indeed just nice to see families and people out. It's been a long couple years, and as Councilwoman Riley said, we can get more testing, and we have to be diligent, and we can't just not be careful with this thing. But it was nice to see people out and about and just having a good time, and a nice day, and see people downtown Binghamton. It was a great time. And the second thing I wanted to mention is yesterday I had the honor of doing a tour of the AVRE organization at 174 Court Street. And I was able to go with two of my colleagues, Councilwoman Friedman and Councilwoman Resinetti, as well as Mayor Cram and Megan from the mayor's office. And I'm just here to tell you what an impressive organization that's right here in downtown Binghamton. I had a few ideas of what they did, but no idea the breadth of that organization and what goes on. We drive by hundreds of times, and what these fine people are doing, they're working, creating goods and services that the public needs. It just was impressive. So I wanted to thank John and Ken and Steve and our main tour guide, Luigi, for giving us this tour and telling us about AVRE. And I would like to do a little plug because sometimes you support organizations directly or indirectly, but they produce massive amounts of copy paper and ship it all over the country. And I know SUNY BU uses a lot of it. I know we use it at City Hall, but it's just a tangible thing. If you have a business or organization that uses copy paper or manila folders, consider using AVRE. I noticed a couple of us took pictures, one of their boxes when we first walked in. Buy local, buy Binghamton, which is great for a great message across our local businesses, but especially with this organization, I think it'd be a practical way to support them. So I was impressed by that. And they also have a little store there. Some people might not have realized you can actually go into 174 Court Street, and if you have a smaller amount of paper, things you need, and there's some other unique items that for visually impaired and legally blind people as well, and some other practical things that you can get there. And I'm sure they'd be happy to talk to you and give you a little idea what they do. So once again, I want to thank those folks at AVRE for taking the time to give us that tour, and for my colleagues for going there as well. So with that, I will take a motion to adjourn our meeting tonight.
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
All right. Have a good evening, everyone.